All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, smash the like button, share them far and wide, and of course, subscribe. If you're on Rumble, it'd be great if you mosey on over to Locals. If you're on YouTube, it'd be great if you moseyed on over to Rumble. Subscribe there and like there as well. It takes about a minute of your time, but it's super, super helpful. Okay. Couple little quick things, little quick announcements before we get started here. After the show today, I believe, and Laura's going to be in the chat in a second to gather up Q&A. Well, not a second. She'll be in the chat in a bit so we can do our Q&A follow-up that we missed on Friday. But I believe, and I will find out with her, 2:30, I think it is. But either way, the show starts at 2, right after this one. And I'll be on with Human Events with Jack Posobiec to talk about more what the polls say and everything. And then whatever Jack wants to talk about. Look, before we get into the public polling project, still doing we had a bang up day on Friday, and then of course things are going to slow down, but we've had a consistent little stream which could, if this continues, will get us in the field really quickly. So keep up the good work. Thank you for it. And again, the more you share, the better, because the larger the contributor base, the easier the burden will be on everybody. All right. And I know that we're going to talk about it today. I know the economic times aren't great for everyone. So if we had a bigger contributor base, it would be easier as we get into this election year. I think that's it. Interactive Polls is back on Twitter after being hacked. We tried to tag Twitter support and Elon Musk, and they got his account back. So cool. And he's a good, he's a valuable source of polling, and he does betting odds too, but polling information and election related information that has to do with the actual numbers, which is what today's show is about right now. Numbers versus narrative, right? You have all these narratives out there, and then you have the numbers. And at the end of the day, this election is going to be about whether or not people will put political persecutions ahead of their own economic situation. If the economy was to improve for Joe Biden, it could make it easier for them to do that and to rationalize, well, maybe it's political, but maybe he did do something wrong. You're going to have some of these people out there. And you know who I'm talking about. And many of you know people like this, but we are going to, if we have time, I wanted to add this as a topic today, but maybe it'll just be kind of a sidebar because I don't know if we're going to have time for it. Like, is Virginia really in play? And for Virginia to be in play, that question has to be settled. And that has to be that there are people in Loudoun County who will absolutely not put that. Look, it's bogus. The conviction is worse than bogus. It's dangerous what they did. The lawfare that's going on in our country. I mean, we could repeat it every day if we want, but I think you know how I feel about it. And honestly, if you don't know what time it is in this country right now and you're justifying it because of your hatred of a man, you're a tiny person and I have no time for you. So I'm not going to continue to do this every day. There's a difference between supporting a candidate over another and being a dangerous ignoramus who is so filled with either hatred or stupidity or ignorance or whatever, because stupidity and ignorance are different, whatever. You actually pose a danger to the safety and liberty of other people. And those people at this point, I have zero use for. And we're just going to leave. We're going to leave it at that this year for the rest of the 5+ months. And we're going to just, hammer them as the toads they are, because that's what they are. They're the clapping seals of every dying republic, every dying democracy, every dying once great civilization in human history. They're the tools that are so stupid and are so filled with hate or whatever it may be that tyrants are allowed to get away with stuff. They are the dangerous ones. That's what we should call them, the dangerous ones, that these tyrants will leverage whatever it is and pick whichever, attribute I just laid out. They will leverage it in order to get what they want. And by the way, at the risk of the people that they're taking advantage of, because they're too stupid to care, they're whatever it may be, blinded by hatred. Hatred's a powerful thing. All right. Anyway, for Virginia to be in play, that question's got to be settled. All right. And you cannot have that hatred overwhelm the national and self-interest. All right. So, and I hate to say it, but I don't know what else our founders could have done, folks. At the end of the day, the codified law means nothing if the character of the people who are there to uphold it are wanting or non-existent at all. And there's nothing they could have done to protect us from that. That's our job now. That's on us. That's our fault. I hate to say it. You let people get away with things without being held, without any accountability, and it only gets worse. The Gulf of Tonkin, WMDs, Russia collusion. I mean, on and on. That's the tip of the iceberg. All right. But before we get into the numbers, because that's what this is about, numbers versus narrative, right? Before we get into the numbers, I just want to hat tip Monday's show when we talked about the real problem that all of the problems, the biggest problem. I mean, I would say all of the problems are caused by this, like we talked about on Monday. In this kind of a system, you must have effective countervailing forces against one power center, one interest, one faction, whatever you want to call it. And we don't have that. And that has been the problem in this country for many, many, many years. Parties who represent the state have switched here and there. Democrats have the longest history, even though it is, kind of flipped. We'll use that word when we're talking about coalitions in the parties that Democrats like to use. But for most of recent history, the Democratic Party has been the party of state and police power. They've been the party of war. All right. Everyone looks back and thinks of the Vietnam era as if that's the way it always was. It wasn't. In the 20th century, Democrats started every major conflict that the United States got engaged in. In the 21st century, obviously, you have Bush, and he's certainly a standout. But this more realism-based approach to foreign policy has always been the hallmark of the Republican Party, with the exception of the post-Reagan to Trump era. And that's just a tiny fraction of history. Like Mitt Romney is not indicative of a Republican when you look at most of modern American history. The truth is, it's more like a Nixon, a Reagan, a Trump, and even Reagan was like, he stacked his administration with neocons. Anyway, I don't want to take too much time on this. The bottom line is there's something I need to read to you because it's a hat tip to what we were talking about Monday. Republicans in this instance have not been an effective countervailing force to the state, to the cultural tide, and which runs counter to the population at large, to this I don't want to say the body politique, but the electorate at large. And that has been the issue, whether they're too scared, they're corrupt, or they're just stupid. Clueless, right? The 3 C's for Republicans: crooked, corrupt, and cowardly, right? Those are the 3 C's of Republican modern, or I would say the rhino wing of the Republican Party. It doesn't really matter which one of those 3 it is. Their inability to fight those who want to enlarge police power or use police power and enlarge the state, which naturally is going to result. I mean, this is a very simple equation, naturally going to result in less liberty. They are the cause of everything. And then, by the way, I could give you an example of when it was flipped. The Iraq War was a lie, and everybody knew it was a lie. Democrats, many of them, most of them went along with it because they knew that Bush had popularity on his side and a scared public. So they voted for the Iraq War anyway. So I'm not dumping everything on the Democratic Party here. I just want to make that clear. Here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, all right? Or what we were talking about on Wednesday. This is from Blaze Media, which from here on out, since I always call out left wings, I'll call out right wings as well. Blaze Media is very much a right wing news outlet. People who are watching my show, I've been getting a lot of mail. There are a lot of people who watch my show simply to learn about polling, and they don't really always. Maybe I'm not making it clear when I give a source, and I don't want those kind of people to tune out because they think that I'm trying to push an outlet. So if it's fair when I bring up Politico, when I say left-wing Politico, then it is certainly fair to bring up Blaze TV and say it's a right-wing outlet, but it doesn't make it false. Blaze Media, 7 GOP senators continue to back White House lawfare even after Trump conviction. This is exactly what I'm talking about by Christopher Redford. Let's do it. Mike Rounds, and I'll give you their first names because they don't. Mike Rounds, Tom Tillis, Lindsey Graham, James Lankford, all joined liberal colleagues, meaning senators, in confirming more Democratic judges. Even 7 Republican senators voted Tuesday to confirm the latest Democratic judge to a 15-year term on the D.C. Superior Court. These are all left-wing hacks who are putting trespassers in prison for half of lifetimes. These are all left-wing hacks who are denying bail to first-time nonviolent offenders. These are all left-wing hacks who refuse to let people who are dying of cancer get proper treatment. These are all left-wing hacks who refuse to let every defendant is entitled to time with their counsel, a right to meet with their counsel, discovery, a speedy and fair trial. That might not be surprising on a normal day, but this judicial nomination was the first chance Republicans had to show even a limp semblance of resistance to Democratic lawfare after the country was plunged into a constitutional crisis by Donald Trump's kangaroo court conviction. Again, maybe a right-wing outlet, but nothing in that paragraph is untrue. Donald Trump's kangaroo court conviction is an absolute correct assessment and characterization of what happened to Donald Trump. The fact that this country, because of democratic lawfare, because they're clinging to power that they would not otherwise be able to keep, has plunged this country into a constitutional crisis is absolutely the correct, fair, and accurate assessment. Some of the 7 Republicans who lent a hand to the Biden administration are the usual suspects, like Senator Susan Collins, Republicans remain, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, who, by the way, here's a great example of the ruling class clutching the power they never would otherwise be able to keep. Lisa Murkowski changed the entire way that candidates are nominated and elected in the state of Alaska, throwing an at-large seat to Democrats, throwing what will be the next time a Senate seat is up, likely to Democrats, just so she could keep her seat. Mitt Romney, Utah. Another, Lindsey Graham plays a conservative on TV, but is a reliable vote for President Biden's judicial agenda. And Ukraine, and money laundering, and wars built on lies like Iraq, and bombing Syria, even though the CIA clearly launched that chemical attack, I would say faked that chemical attack. I know you don't hear about that in the West, but yeah, that happened. The final 3, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, and Mike Rounds, have no excuse. Tom Tillis is an operative of the deep state. Everyone in North Carolina is waiting on the Republican side until the next time that he can be primaried. They are dying until the first term, incumbent midterm with the new president, second term, non-consecutive, Donald Trump, can go out and campaign against him in North Carolina. I'm not sure he will with some of the awful endorsements you're seeing Donald Trump make, but that is what the base wants in North Carolina. They can't stand Tom Tillis anymore. Mike Rounds has always been a rhino. South Dakota, ruby red South Dakota, and he is a total and utter hack, liar, two-face scumbag. James Lankford, again, Oklahoma, folks. Okie. He's an Okie. He is a two-face scumbag. All right, the rest of them, we could just keep going down. Lindsey Graham will bend over if you ask him to, if you tell him you're going to give him some money for nukes. He is a one tracker, dude. There is no, look, it was notable that some of them, including notable because Lindsey Graham did come out and trash the lawfare. He did in a statement publicly, which is important. There's no doubt it is. Susan Collins, extremely important to see her come out and call this a political perversion and, a kangaroo court. Very, very, very important that people like Susan Collins do that. Even Mitt Romney, who is leaving the Senate. Why? Because of Trump. He can't win an election in his own state now. He would be defeated in a primary convention because they have this system in Utah, for those who don't know. He would be defeated because of Donald Trump loyalty. So he has absolutely no reason to come out and publicly call the prosecution of Donald Trump what it is: political lawfare that has corrupted our system and made us a less than exceptional nation. But he did, and that is all very important. But when they have the chance to do something, not just alter strongly worded letters and statements, when they have a chance to do something, to hold somebody accountable, they do nothing. They do nothing. What do you think the FBI or the intel community has on Lindsey Graham? How long has he been in Washington, D.C.? We all know he's on the DL. Let's cut the shit. How many videos or audio tapes do you think they have of Lindsey Graham? Is Lindsey Graham somebody we could confidently say is not compromised? Or does he really just like death, maiming, torture, war, dismemberment, blood, murder, as much as he pretends to? Mr. Tough Guy with a lisp can call for the annihilation of an entire effing nation, but he doesn't have the balls to stand up and vote no against Joe Biden's judicial appointment. So not that I want to spend too much on this, but this is a perfect example. There you have it. Clear as day. Republicans continue to support their own prosecution. It would be shocking were it not so believable. And it shouldn't be shocking to anyone, because as we talked about on Monday, you will often hear, speaking of narratives, topic of today's show, you will often hear people go on, from right wing to left wing cable news and argue and make the case that Donald Trump is causing a decline of this nation. If Donald Trump gets in office, he will make an assault on democracy. If Donald Trump gets in office, it's the end of our system itself. If Donald Trump gets in office, people won't be represented and they'll be persecuted. Those people don't seem to understand the rise of Donald Trump is and the reason we're in this mess was caused by the same thing. Trump and his followers did not cause it. It caused them because they caused the crisis. And that crisis is a crisis of a matter of social contract. The political class is a failed political class that has destroyed in less than 3 decades. They took a rich, prospering, never heard of in the history of human civilization level superpower and destroyed it. They bankrupted it. They perverted its morals. They perverted its institutions. In less than 3 decades, this ruling class has ruined and destroyed the most powerful civilization in human history. Roman excess took hundreds of years to destroy the Republic and later the empire. Stoicism and Roman ethos and the strength of their empire survived for nearly 1,000 years. These people took a position stronger than Rome had and fucked it all up in less than 3 decades. And their people are furious. That led to the rise of Donald Trump, not the other way around. All right. So I just wanted to show you that, and it's all because Republicans are cowards, corrupt, and clueless. I just wanted to show you that because I wish that was there on Monday when we were talking about this. There couldn't be a better example of what we were discussing. All right, time to get a little bit into straight numbers off the cheese here. Okay. Fresh off the cheese, because we are discussing whether or not anything seems to be improving for Joe Biden post Donald Trump's conviction. Again, I'm going to show this graph before we get into the new numbers. I just want to show you give you context. This is the context for this election. Give me 1 second. Of course, the lights stopped working. Come on. I'm sure Laura's happy I lost the other one. Change in household net worth since the start of the presidency. As you can see, straight nominal value. Donald Trump already spanks Joe Biden like a bad little 2-year-old with the terrible twos. And then adjusted for inflation, it's even more awful because, of course, Biden is actually negative. The Obama years, what's the difference, right? The Biden years are adjusted for inflation anyway, negative change in household net worth since the start of the presidency. Listen, I can tell you, as somebody who has what is considered, if not recession proof, close to recession proof, though I certainly feel the business cycle. There's no doubt there will always be elections, there will always be politics going on. And unfortunately for me, until I figure out something else to do, it's just drive me crazy, right? That's I still can feel it. Others feel it a lot worse than me, and I recognize that. But even I can feel that the Biden years are not as prosperous as the Trump years. And then, by the way, if you guys think it's bad now, Trump's tax cut sunset. So if you think, unless you're, you know, an ignoramus who believes, whoa, hold on 1 second. She would never do this unless this is important. Hang on 1 second. Hello, Pumpkin. You okay? Pumpkin? It's a butt call. It's a butt call. It was our daughter, babe. I thought she never calls in the middle of a show, guys. So like she never calls in the middle of a show. So that was a butt call, which makes sense because this is her last day of school and she knows I have a show and she knows when my show is. She would never ever interrupt it unless it's serious. That's why I stopped to pick it up. But as it turns out, it's not serious. I can hear kids in the background laughing and chatting. It sounds like a butt call. All right. Yeah, so back to it. Even I can feel the difference. And wait, unless you're just a total fool who believes the faked report by the New York Times of with the fabricated couple and how they would be impacted by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we eviscerated that math. They were forced to print a correction. They were totally. I mean, it's not that hard to go get a CPA to look at your report to make sure that you're talking correctly. Like, you know what you're talking about. They screwed up the SALT deduction math. They screwed up the fact that they have earned income credits. I mean, it was awful, an abysmal piece. 85% of the country received a reduction in the tax burden from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The 4% received a tax increase. By the way, they are the wealthy, and the rest saw no change. So the Trump tax cuts, even though they did in fact have corporate tax cuts in them, because the math shows that there is a Goldilocks zone for corporate tax rates, and when the tax rates are in the Goldilocks zone, wages grow. We have multiple decades of data from the very right-wing OECD and World Bank, right? That tell us in the developed world, by the way, that tell us that there is that Goldilocks zone. So that's why the Trump tax cuts had that corporate tax rate in it, or that's why Trump agreed to it. He's not an idiot. He knows. He gets it. He's just a smart economic guy. In any event, when they sunset, all of you, the vast majority, actually, because I would say probably 95% of you, given my audience, you will experience an extreme increase in your tax rate if Joe Biden is reelected. It's that simple. So when you look at that graph that I just put up before, it will get worse, even if the economy marginally improves, because your tax burden is going to increase significantly. And by the way, who knows? If they throw their political opponents in jail, if they get away with conducting coups on duly elected presidents while they're in office, or not even when they're the president elect, when they're running for president, but even, whatever, then who knows? Maybe Elizabeth Warren will get her wealth tax, which is not even a wealth tax. It's not a tax on things that are assessed as liquid in your net worth. There are ridiculous standards and definitions for what constitutes wealth and what creates your estimated burden for that wealth. It's insane. You will be hurt badly, even if you are moderately middle to high income. So why? Because other people, you will get that passed along to you. And if you're like moderately high income, you will be hurt. Period. Go look it up. Some of that plan is insane. So this is the context, and I'm not sure everybody understands the full context. All right, so with that in mind, let's go look at the latest job numbers. All right, shall we? This is, of course, private sector employment only. This is not a household survey of government bureaucrats who don't know how to poll correctly anyway, conducting what is essentially a very large-scale poll nationwide to get the unemployment rate. That's not what this is. This is from ADP, which is a national payroll processor firm. And they are looking at actual payroll processing. All right. So they're looking at actual payrolls. They are not conducting a survey. That's what the government does. And they estimate and revise it later with better data. It's the truth. That initial report you're going to hear Friday morning, the employment situation, colloquially or more commonly referred to as the jobs report, a monthly jobs report, that is a poll. The results that you will hear that day anyway, that is a poll. This is not. This is something else. Listen, I say this all the time. The difference between philosophies on the economy, it really matters. The Obama-Biden philosophy, and thus their policy, and thus the outcome, is to build a professional class economy that is service sector dominated, public sector controlled. So another fascism, basically. It is. But let me break that down for what that means to you in a nutshell. They have it good. You get to wait on them, basically wash their feet, pick their glasses up off their tables, bring them their food, And by the way, you got to do it like with 3 different jobs in order to make ends meet. Or you can go bury yourself in student debt, study something you don't even like, get a job you can't stand, become a professional, maybe like a lawyer. Oh, that's great. We need more lawyers, right? Stuff like that. A bureaucrat. Yeah, we need more bureaucrats. That's what they believe is the future. And that's what they believe would make the world a better place if everyone was just not as stupid as you folks, right? And they would go and do that. And the rest of the little people, like I said, can wait on you, wait on them. That's their philosophy. Here's the problem with that from a nation building standpoint, or from if you're a realist, a foreign policy realist. You cannot take latent power in an economy like that. You cannot take your economic wealth and easily, and I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? When it's reliably, right? You cannot easily and reliably take that latent power and economic wealth and transfer it into military power if you need to defend yourself. All right. And that's a real issue. We saw during COVID how much we do truly rely on the Chinese for essential things. That's a problem. Our warheads contain rare minerals, all right, that basically we are not even allowed to farm in the United States anymore, even though they're, speaking of Utah, huge deposits and places out in the plain states like that, in the mountain region, huge amounts of it. We're not allowed to mess with those rare materials. So we buy them from China, and we use them in our laser guided systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why would we care about the electrical vehicle fanatics destroying the automobile industry? I don't know, because maybe in World War I and World War II, we converted plants like that to machines of war and enabled us to defeat the Nazis. Without it, we would have lost. Like, I don't know. What else do you need, right? under Trump and generally that philosophy, they prioritize manufacturing, construction, right? And specifically durable good manufacturing, which is very, very important. Not only does this give more people an economic opportunity because not everybody's going to go. I hate to tell everybody, not everyone's going to go like Barack Obama to a college they don't deserve to go to and get an education that they don't pay for. And then, go out and have a political career that they don't want with a wife who doesn't love them and hates being in the limelight. And like, not everybody wants to follow that path just so they can have a house at Martha's Vineyard, you know? Uh, and even if they did, there wouldn't be enough of them. And it's a very selective economy. A goods producing economy is not as selective. Wages are better, right? So you need to work fewer jobs to make ends meet. It is not as expensive to be educated for it. And perhaps, I wouldn't say most importantly, but you do need to think about defending yourself. If and when the time ever comes that you need to make your economy a war machine, because you cannot rely on the military industrial complex siphoning from the professional class. By the way, where are they siphoning it from? Debt. You can't rely on that forever. What if you get into a war with someone who holds your debt? I mean, folks, it's unbelievably stupid. It's just globalism for you, though. They want you to ignore human nature. Hopefully, we'll all just sing kumbaya and hold hands, and then there won't be a need for war. So the debt is really not a thing. That's the way that's what they believe. But in the real world, in this reality in which we all exist, that's a load of horse shit. It is a dangerous world. There's no global 911, and everybody is looking for a relative power advantage, including the United States. And sometimes you piss off another great power when you do that. But what does it mean to you every day? If you're my age, pretty easy. It means your dad wasn't going to lose his job because 800 illegals gathered outside the 7-Eleven to take his job. That's what it means. It means you will have a better life. And your parents can work hard to give you a better life. So then there in turn, you can take that opportunity and make a better one for your kids. It's called the American dream. Anyway, let's get back to what the numbers actually say here. The consensus forecast for this month on the jobs report for private sector employment only. The consensus was for 173,000, which is already kind of rather weak, and we missed the forecast. The ADP National Employment Report finds that we only added 152,000 jobs. Now, ADP, I would think it's safe to say that ADP's chief economist is a liberal. So when I read this to you right now, you need to take that into consideration. Job gains and pay growth are slowing, you think, going into the second half of the year. By the way, GDP is abysmal. The labor market is solid. We're going to talk about that in a second. But we're monitoring notable pockets of weakness tied to both producers and consumers. Lady, the labor market is not solid. The projections for jobless claims for tomorrow, I hope it isn't as bad as it looks. But let me give everybody a few little numbers they need to put under their hat. A truly tight labor market has at least or close to 63% labor participation, hopefully that or higher. A low unemployment rate, because of the methodological gimmick we've talked about a million times, I'm not going to get into, and jobless claims that are below 200,000 weekly, among other things like wage growth adjusted for inflation, et cetera, et cetera. None of those things I can give you as a benchmark for the Biden economy right now. Even when we're given these numbers, they are always revised down. And the real truth of, when you look back and the actual final data, it's just been very bad. Except for jobless claims here and there. But There's a debate over whether or not we simply ran out of eligible people. Under the Trump administration, without all of those jobs that were vaporized from COVID, we had consistent, huge, consecutive periods of time when jobless claims were below 200,000 or at all-time lows. It did hit those jobless claims numbers hit all-time lows under Trump, and then they remain there for long consecutive weeks on end. Job growth at a rate not seen, I mean, wage growth at a rate not seen, even adjusted for inflation, since the Great Recession, and it had stayed there before COVID for 13 consecutive months. And of course, labor force participation hit 63 and held there for the first time. Also, since the Great Recession. You may remember the Biden years where people were telling us it's just a new normal and it's never going to hit 63 again. It's not Barack Obama's fault. It's generational. There's so many people exiting the labor force. That is true. However, there are also so many people pouring across our border, so many people coming in legally and illegally, being naturalized. And really, the bottom line is this number, just to keep up with the pace of population growth, needs to be around 250,000 a month. Otherwise, Americans, domestic Americans, are suffering. And that's where we're really at. So the ass kisser should revise her statement. Private sector employment increased by 152,000 jobs in May, and annual pay was up 5% year over year. Sounds good, doesn't it? Until you adjust it for inflation. According to the ADP National Employment Report that's produced by the ADP Research Institute. It's in collaboration with Stanford Digital Economy Lab, which is different now under Biden. This is something you will not hear about. What? What are you talking about, Rich? The ADP National Employment Report before Biden was conducted jointly with Moody's. Yup. I don't know the situation behind it. I'm just telling you. If I was to jointly do research for somebody, for let's say the national poll conducted by the Epoch Times, okay? If I was to do that, and then let's say it's Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar. Let's say the Epoch Times says we want a joint poll like other media outlets have. Who would you recommend? And I said, you know what? I'll poll with Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar, or it could be others. But I'm bringing it. I'm making conversation here. And then I switched six, whatever it may be, in the next election cycle. And I said, actually, I think I'm going to go with Jim Lee from Susquehanna. So we're going to fire Robert Cahaley and we're going to bring on Jim Lee. And we're going to jointly conduct the new Epoch Times poll this cycle with Jim Lee instead. Do you think the product would be the same? Honestly. Because, I mean, if you say yes, well, Rich, isn't it methodology? But everybody has their own methodology. All right. Hey, Laura, I just got an email telling me, don't forget to wait. You know what I'm talking about? Because of my mistake. Don't forget to wait. Do not launch yet. That's funny. All right. So I just wanted to give that up. So this is, by the way, an independent measure and high-frequency view of the private sector labor market based on actual anonymized payroll data of more than 25 million U.S. employees. What they're saying right there is this isn't a survey being conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're looking at our actual payroll data that comes from more than 25 million U.S. employees. And I'm not going to read what she wrote, but let me just give you the numbers here. You're going to shit because the economic data today is absolutely awful. The economic data this week, and in fact, for the start of last month and now the beginning of this month, which of course many are lagging indicators, it's awful. Mortgage applications, by the way, also released the composite index down. It's negative, not down. It is negative 5.2%, which is considered an improvement. I kid you not, from the negative 5.7. The refi index, even in these conditions, negative 6.8, it was negative 13.6. The purchase index is even worse. It was negative 1.1, and now it's negative 4.4. The only thing that did well is the ISM service index, or what they renamed to call now the services PMI. Last month, it was 49.1, the prior reading. The consensus was 50.7. And this month, it's 53.8, indicating that basically, when you look at their manufacturing PMI, which is not doing well, the only thing that's growing is the service sector. Change in U.S. private employment by industry. You ready? Service providing, 149,000. Whoa, Rich, you said it was 152,000 jobs. Right, only 3,000 jobs came from a goods producing sector. Manufacturing lost 20,000 jobs. Natural resources and mining lost 9,000 jobs. Construction was up 32 because they got to build the FBI their new building, folks. But it was offset by the 29,000 job loss in normie, average working American jobs. Among those in the service providing sector, which was the entire report, information was down 7. Utilities, 55,000. I wonder where they're coming from. Leisure and hospitality, 12. Education and health services. That's great. All we needed. Or more doctors willing to falsify death records so their hospitals can get COVID money. 46,000. Financial sector, 28,000. Must be nice. I know I got to take a break soon, but just bear with me. Crap, I don't have time. It's 12:48. I missed the first cue. We're going to have to take a break, but real quick. The South did get 101,000 of those jobs. The West lost 10,000. The Midwest only got 9,000. And New England got 44. The Northeast got 44,000. New England is dying. The Northeast is dying. Or what? Long term it is. What do they benefit from this time? Gee, what's in the Northeast? Right. Awful. Very, very, very bad. Structurally, pragmatically, literally, just awful. Awful economic news. Speaking of which, and there's one more thing I want to talk to you about in the economy before we move on to some of the polls, and then we'll take your questions. All right, but hang tight. Speaking of the economy, okay? Look, I just went over everything that's going on right now. If you're thinking about it, don't be shocked. You ain't alone. It's no surprise that people are looking for other places to put their money in this environment. Stocks can be unpredictable. And let's be real. The inflation that we just were talking about has a huge impact on the value of currencies. Is it going to get better? Right? Folks, you buy currencies to protect yourself, to diversify your portfolio against things like inflation, right? And that's why I want to talk to you about Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about, or you do already, investing in gold or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio more, Freedom Gold USA is definitely the company that you need to check out. What I like about them is that they really are all about helping you make the right and smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So they offer a bunch of free investment guides, consultations. They give you the information that they think you need that will help you make confident decisions. No pressure, no hard sell. That's one thing that really separates them from others. But also, they guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver that you'll find. You know you're getting a solid deal, and you don't have to worry about any extra fees. They offer free shipping and insurance on all orders. All orders. Plus, you might even get some free silver if you have some qualifying purchases. You'll get a $500 credit toward opening a gold or silver IRA. That's a nice bonus. And here's the best part. Again, dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and it's hassle-free. You will not get any pushy sales tactics. And if you do, you let me know. They're all about helping you reach your financial goals in a way that works for you. So if you want to learn more, I'd recommend giving Freedom Gold USA a call. The number's on the screen, 888-279-3592. Or you could check out their website that's just for us, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Find out about their special offers. See what kind of deals you may qualify for. Let me give you that number again one more time, 888-279-3592. Or go to freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Don't wait. Give them a call today, folks, after the show, of course, and secure your financial future today. All right, I'm going to take a quick 30 seconds to get some water. I'm going to be right back. I got a lot more that I want to discuss with you. Who took away my thing? Ah, there it is. Be right back. All right, we're back. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like and share these videos. If you like them, smash the like button and subscribe. As always, take a minute of your time. If you're watching on YouTube, and roll over to Rumble and subscribe there and give it a thumbs up. Would very much appreciate it. It does an enormous amount to help us with sponsors, the algorithms, you name it. But of course, the best place to follow us is right there. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, check this out. I was trying to exit solo layout, even though it's a solo layout. I have said a million times that economics is politics. Laura and I have been talking about it. We were just talking about this before the show because we were teeing it up and getting ready for the segment on it, really. And this came up. I mean, it couldn't have come at a better time. Greed destroyed the electoral viability of the Republican Party, or greed in part. Stupidity had a lot to deal with too. But as far as the corrupt part, what causes corruption? Well, it could be several things. Mostly it's greed, is it not? And in the pursuit of wealth, in the pursuit of stupidity, like, oh, I'm going to get money and be able to boast about a low employment rate. Maybe I'll get reelected as governor. They have transformed their states into what I just warned you about. From going from economic manufacturing and construction and goods producing powerhouses to professional class service sector shitholes. All right. Georgia is a fantastic example of that. Donald Trump did not turn the Georgia Atlanta metro area or the Atlanta regional division blue. Republicans did that over the years with the industry that they brought in. Okay. Donald Trump was just around, and what did he do? He emphasized the people who got left behind by their little plans. And of course, that's not going to play well in the areas where those plans benefited people, and a bunch of people that poured in as a result of taking an opportunity. Georgia's a great example. Also, we have a tiny tinsel town. Yeah, I think it's a great idea for conservative Georgia to open the floodgates to the commies in Hollywood to come in and take over large parts of Atlanta, as if that's not going to do anything to the culture, to the politics, to the region's flavor. Of course it will. And we are seeing it again. And you know what? Behind these pushes are always the scumbag GOP donor class pieces of shit like Ken Griffin. And here we have him doing it again. Citadel and BlackRock back national project to start a national stock exchange in Texas. Folks, this isn't the 1980s. This isn't Wolf of Wall Street. This isn't Wall Street, the movie, right? This isn't Gordon Gekko, all right? This isn't the 1980s where rugged individualism and the pursuit of wealth were values, and that's good because if you're not a burden on society, if you're successful, there's nothing wrong with money as long as you're being virtuous about it. And if you're successful, you are no longer a burden on your fellow man. Because when you're a burden on your fellow man in your community, you're a burden on the state. When the state becomes a burden, they're a burden on the nation. When your nation becomes a burden nation, you're just friggin' worthless. You end up being Western Ukraine, where they do nothing but live off of the hard work of Eastern Ukraine and the shale wealth and the farms and the people who produce everything while they sit around and sip lattes in Kiev. That was their life before the war. TXSC chairman and CEO James Lee said the Dallas headquartered group has raised $120 million with the support of more than 24 investors. The Wall Street Journal reported on the endeavor earlier, saying the exchange is billing itself as a, quote, more CEO-friendly, unquote, alternative to the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ in the face of rising regulation. TXSE's website said it will be, quote, fully electronic national securities exchange that will seek registration with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, unquote. Now, people are going to say, but Rich, this is good. This is good. This is just a way for them to go back to being more like that Wolf of Wall Street. More like, okay, well, was that like totally great? Number one. Number two, I'm telling you this right now, mark my words. They do this. Texas absolutely is far more likely to turn blue if Trump does not complete the realignment of Hispanic voters into a majority vote winning party because of him. If they don't do that, Texas will turn blue. Period. End of story. End of story. Griffin hates Trump. It has already seen an enormous influx of professional class people that have turned places like the Dallas-Fort Worth area, even though there are parts, of course, of Tarrant County is a red area, but have turned those areas blue. Austin, you know, there's always been some blue pockets, but now we know the situation there. I get it. Rich, this is them reacting. And this is because the Wall Street Journal, hilariously, does not really explain it all. The cases against Donald Trump are scaring business out of New York. And then you would say, Rich, well, where are they going to go? I don't care where Ken Griffin takes his billions. I don't give a shit about Ken Griffin. He's doing just fine. I care more about the working class Hispanic in Texas 15 who is going to get screwed by this. That's what I care. New York, and I said it when it happened, when Fat Tisha James decided that she was going to take that case against Donald Trump and fabricate a civil violation, which Patrick Leahy did a bang-up job better than I ever could explaining, happens every day in that industry. There was nothing wrong with what Donald Trump did with his loans. Absolutely nothing wrong. Loan to cash value, it's called. When she did that, she threatened New York's status as the financial center of not only the United States, but of the world. Of course she did. Threatening to seize Trump Tower. Every real estate mogul said, whoa! I don't know if you know, but REITs are pretty important on Wall Street. When they decided they were going to try to seize his assets or threaten to seize his assets, it scared the hell out of all of these people. Then they hit him with, they resurrect a misdemeanor, just straight convert it, no law, no nothing, fabricate more than 30 counts of felonies based off of that misdemeanor, which you do not have to describe. Listen, these people may hate Donald Trump, but they hate jail too. They love their money. They're not parting with their millions. They're not going to risk getting on Fat Tisha's bad side and end up, in the same seat. But listen, the economics is politics.
Stop banging the table.
Stupid. Greg Abbott is stupid, and he's going to let this happen. You watch. Why? Millions. Griffin's going to slip a little something in his. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. Slip a little something in his pocket. They know what I mean. Let's just use your imagination. Dumb. Incredibly, incredibly dumb. But of course, that's what the Republican Party is. They're stupid. Okay, listen. The bounce for Joe Biden, that was first. Listen, Reuters sucks. We're not going to talk about the Ipsos poll. They suck. And even Reuters didn't move. The YouGov poll didn't move. You have the usual suspects coming out. Some of them aren't even aggregated by most of the aggregators. But for the most part, the tracking polls, which Morning Consult is a robust sample, and they track every day. They're now back to Trump +1. So after Biden taking listen, it could have been a response bias coupled with statistical noise. That was Biden's move to +1. And now he is down again. And then we hear what we hear from the usual suspects about, well, you know what? Barack Obama was in a similar position. No, he was not. This day in history, TDIH, June 5th, the 4th year of their presidencies. Biden, 40.4. Trump, 42.9. Obama, 47.4. Bush, 46.0. The first two lost. The second two won. Period. Barack Obama had something that Joe Biden never had. By the way, so did George Bush. Not to the degree that Barack Obama had it, and by the way, to the degree that Trump had it. And that would be a base of support who not only holds together and is, like almost immovable, but why are they immovable? Because they loved him. Trump's base, they love him. Even Bush had an adoring evangelical base. They loved him. At that point, fast forward the clock 3 years later, and they abandoned him too, Laura. Terrible war in Iraq, which some of them still supported. Many did not anymore, coupled with the destruction of the U.S. economy. And even white evangelicals abandoned George Bush. And here's the kicker. Bush, the so-called first evangelical president, did not win evangelicals by all that much. He really did. Not compared to the numbers we see for Trump. Trump beat Ronald Reagan's share of the two-party vote among evangelicals. And Reagan stomped. Bush was in the 50s. That's it. So this, I had a professor. I had him for a couple of things, but one of my favorite classes, I'll never forget this, was history and public policy. Not the history of public policy. History and public policy. And Spangler wrote a book about it, which nobody read because he was just like and he didn't have a very big name. He wasn't an academic like John Mearsheimer. Brilliant work, a body of work. Brilliant. And he had these things he used to call, but he didn't used to. He still calls, I'm sure. And should be called and should be referred to, because I think he literally, not that just did he write the book on this, but he literally wrote the book on this. Like he came at this from a perspective that few do. And I wish there was more people in the electorate who had a greater understanding of what Spangler's talking about, because he had these things called historical inaccurate analogies. Historically inaccurate analogies. So for the book club people out there, when we read Myths of Empire, right? One of those myths, the Munich crisis, right? We gotta learn from our mistakes. That like the one Chamberlain made at Neville Chamberlain made at Munich. It's the lessons of Munich. That's what the myth is actually called, the lesson of Munich. If we don't fight everybody preemptively, they're all going to turn into Hitler. But of course, every instance, every event is unique to itself. The nations are unique and their interests are unique. So, of course, not everyone is going to act like Adolf Hitler. And that's not because he's just a different person. At that time, Germany's needs were different. They were encircled in a world that was shrinking. As transportation and technology and were on the rise, trade was even more intertangled and intertwined than it is now, integrated than it is now. As according to like E.H. Carr and others, I think he makes a really good point. In that era, it was an era dealing with, for the first time, with an ever-shrinking world and an old Europe, an old world. And to be encircled by historical enemies was a bad thing. So it wouldn't matter what Chamberlain told Hitler in that meeting. The lessons of Munich. He would have invaded Poland anyway. He was trying to knock it out of the box and preemptively strike and secure enough for people who support Israel out there. It's the same reason why Israel did not give back the piece of land between them and Egypt after they attempted to invade them, because they don't want to fight those invading forces again on their own territory, in their own backyard. So they want a buffer. It's the same reason why, now that we push Vladimir Putin to the limit that we pushed him, we're probably going to have to give him maybe a little bit more than what he originally set out for, which was just Eastern Europe. Again, likely, but not certain. And let's not make historically inaccurate analogy. And what you hear from these people who are apologists for Biden is a textbook Spangler, historically inaccurate analogy. It is simply not true that Joe Biden is in a similar position that past presidents have been in before who would later go on to win. The one they love to cite is, of course, Barack Obama. That is simply false. He is in a far worse position than Barack Obama ever was. Barack Obama was 2.6% away from 50%. Joe Biden is 9.6 away from 50%. And that's if you trust the aggregate, which has polls like us that are a little bit more bullish on Biden's approval rating in the mix. Others have a Biden in the toilet with his approval rating. In the toilet. People who, and Gallup just released an article about this, by the way, last week. People who have presidents who have Joe Biden's approval rating up for election do not get reelected. Now, I think we're in a new age that threatens to at least, or risks, making this into a historical analogy. I just don't think that bridge is that big. So, bridging us between that point and where we are now, it's not that big. The space is too vast to build that bridge is my point. Biden isn't at 45. He's not at 44, right? If he was, then we can maybe have that conversation. How much does approval rating really impact now? It used to be huge in the past. The approval rating told you almost everything you needed to know. Now you can see a party, outperform their approval rating. Trump outperformed it. He's at 43% here. He outperformed it by about 4 points. Even if Biden did that, he'd still lose. He'd still lose. All right. So there you go. Oh, let me just show you what we got here real quick. I don't know if we're going to have time to read this Virginia thing. What time is it? Because I do have to take breaks. Hmm. By the way, here we have the YouGov poll is a tie. I mean, this movement, same thing with the Mitchell Research poll. It was Trump +2. Now it's tied. Trump, listen, this is a BS. You will see us do this, but only to be able to gauge maybe when third-party appetites decline, where could these people go? But every poll from now on will include at least Kennedy, and if not, it will be all of them, because it'll be what we know to be the actual ballot now, and it will include what its potential could be, and then maybe that head-to-head just so we can see, well, what if? Where would they go? Our polling suggests that Michigan is a different story when it comes to Kennedy than what Mitchell research is finding here, but we'll see. They only have Kennedy at 3. We had Kennedy much higher. He could have collapsed by now. And by the way, putting him on, it was a political mistake to put Kennedy, or for Kennedy to accept the natural law nomination, the natural law party's nomination. Why? Because there are people who are more inclined to vote for an independent candidate than a I don't even know if I could call that a third party candidate. I mean, they are a almost non-existent force in Michigan politics, and their brand isn't where you would want it to be if you were them. You're going to have some lefties look at it and say, oh my God, natural law. What a bunch of right wingers spouting the founders. And that's actually not the case. And then you have right wingers who know that that's not the case, that in fact they hold some really weird positions. And in fact, they hold some positions that Kennedy does not hold. So I think Kennedy hurt himself accepting that nomination. I do. And I'm dying to pull it again. We'll see. All right. But as you can see here with The Economist, Joe Biden's approval rating has not improved. News Nation, same thing. That's also done usually with what's called balls. The Decision Desk. But they've been doing it with the Hill, so I don't know who they do it with this time. They have more polls to come out, I'm sure. But the News Nation has the generic vote at Republican +2. We'll just have to wait and see what the presidential vote will be. But again, as you can see here, and if we just go here, you can see Trump's lead is now unchanged from before the verdict. And really, the only one in there that was favorable to them are the usual suspects. The Ipsos poll, which is garbage. I'm sorry. Ipsos is a terrible panel that I've heard horrible things about, but also those people are doing something with that data after they gather it from the panel. And all of the assumptions these people have made over the years have been utterly wrong. If you remember the University of Virginia, which is Larry and his tiny crystal balls, he partnered with them in 2018 to do a bunch of these like Senate races. Will Democrats take them? Folks, they had Beto O'Rourke ahead. It ended up being close. But they were literally the only poll that had Beto O'Rourke ahead in Texas. He lost. We know the NPR PBS Marist poll absolutely blows donkey. We know it. It blows double D, yo. It's one of, if not the worst polls in Ohio and North Carolina. And nationally, there's nothing great about it either. Quinnipiac. Do we really have to go there? And ironically, Quinnipiac was actually showing a much closer race. Don't be surprised if like Marquette or Quinnipiac or Marist drop like a Biden +8. Don't be surprised. But trends matter more than individual polls with bad track records, especially for presidential elections, because they may have done decent in some of the midterm races, but the fact of the matter is you're going to have to know how to find that low prop Trump voter in order to poll a presidential race. Okay? That you're going to have to do that. Laura, I'll go to like 1:15 and then take the break, and then we'll do questions. All right? We should have plenty of time. All right, but we can see here Trump is now up. Both candidates began to decline in the wake of the Trump verdict. Not just Trump. Both candidates began on aggregate to decline. In the morning consult poll, Biden did go from 41 to 40. Well, yeah, he went from 42 to 45. And then a day later, he dropped again. And they're now back to Trump +1. The Harris X poll was tied for Forbes before the conviction. He was tied, folks. It's now Trump +2 with Trump above 50%. And here you can see it down here, the morning consult poll. Here's the one, which is now out of the average. Oops, I was just trying to highlight up to that last 3. You can see the one with that was the first post-conviction poll, with tracking results post-conviction. And now, of course, it's gone already. Biden fell back down to 43, and Trump remains at 44. You can see in the aggregate here that Trump is on the way back up as both men decline post-trial, post-verdict, and now Trump is back on the rise. And we're ending back at Trump 1.1, which is exactly what it was the day the verdict came out. There you have it. There you have it. We'll have to see what happens in the summer. This reminds me of George Bush's lead over John Kerry. The big difference here is that, of course, the Electoral College is much different now as compared to the popular vote. Thank you, George Bush, for allowing tons of people to pour across the border without doing a damn thing about it illegally. And now it's a totally different electorate than it was in 2004. But Bush's lead, if you go back and track it versus Kerry, looked very similar to Trump's. For the most part, it was a very clear lead. Maybe a few left-wing polls throw in a Kerry +4 here and there. But for the most part, the aggregate was consistent and in agreement that Bush had a tiny lead. Then when Bush got into the summer, the pounding throughout May, John Kerry is a liberal elitist from Massachusetts. He's a liberal elitist from the Northeast. He doesn't share your values. Oh, by the way, Swift boat. Ever tell you about all the villagers John Kerry murdered because he was scared? Swift boat. John Kerry loves to talk about being a SEAL. And here, let me tell you about my story when I served with John Kerry. But they painted him in May. So by mid to late summer, Bush begins to open up a pretty big lead. The conventions pop off, which are later than they are now. And it tightens somewhat. And then they go into September, kind of trading leads, but with Bush, just a little bit ahead for the most part. It remains to be seen whether or not we'll follow that same kind of trend. But up until now, it's been fairly close. But at one point, Trump's lead was 3 times the lead that Bush had at that time. In an environment that is much harder to win the popular vote if you are a Republican. So what did that tell you about the Electoral College? All right. It's 1:15. I got to shut the hell up, take our next little break. And then when we come back, we'll do and hit all questions. All right. Before Laura has, me for breakfast here. All right. Am I missing anything? I feel like I'm missing an announcement of some kind. Again, let me just remind you, after the show, I'll be on with Jack Posobiec on human events. Don't miss that. That should be fun. But let's take our break. Let's go to it. All right. And so our friends at the Wellness Company, we also should have a treat for you guys pretty soon. Just trying to work out the details of it. But for the most part, we have seen the headlines, right? Starting really in the spring, but on April 23rd, media outlets began to flood these headlines with the latest avian flu development. The FDA said it, quote, had detected viral particles of H5N1 avian flu influenza in milk purchased at grocery stores, unquote. Here we go. While the FDA cautioned that they believe the milk is still safe to drink, others are still sounding the alarm. You got Dr. Eric Topol out there, the founder of Scripps Research Translational Institute. He said the finding of viral particles in milk on grocery store shelves means the outbreak is probably more widespread than we know. He added, the dissemination to cows is far greater than we have been led to believe. Sound familiar? The FDA assurance that the dairy supply is safe is nice, but it's not based on extensive assessment yet, which they acknowledge. And they don't engender trust and confidence because it comes in the wake of the USDA mishandling, unquote, but he means of COVID. The chief medical board of the Wellness Company has been closely watching this for a while now, the outbreak in the United States and everywhere else over the last few weeks, months. And while it is far from certain that this most recent strain of bird flu will even result in a pandemic, we know that the medical tyrants are never going to be done with us. Disgraceful appearance by Dr. Fauci on Monday, even more disgraceful show that the Republicans put on, which will hold nobody accountable. And with scientists still saying that the bird flu strain will be, quote, are you ready? 100 times worse than COVID. unquote. And knowing it's an election year, Americans understand that now more than ever, we need to be prepared. Do you have what your family needs this time around? Because most doctors still won't even consider prescribing ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. But we've got you covered. The smear campaigns did horrible, horrible things to those drugs and indeed the entire health industry. It's the only of its kind prescription contagion emergency kit from the Wellness Company. It provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for bird flu, COVID-19, other respiratory illnesses, SARS, like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack, Tamiflu, budesonide, along with a nebulizer. So you can rest easy knowing that you have emergency meds on hand, along, by the way, with a guidebook for safe use. That guidebook is super cool, isn't it, Laura? It's real cool. Guys, when you get it, check it out and read that guidebook. Backed by research from experts like Dr. Peter McCullough, the Wellness Company's Contagion Emergency Kit is a must-have. Every American should have at least one of these kits in their homes, especially if you've got multiple kids. Avoid the chaos, wait times, and the price of the hospital, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. At the end of the day, you just want to have these life-saving medications on hand, folks, and then you won't even have to think about it. That's called peace of mind. Go to twc.health/TPP and grab your Contagion Emergency Kit right now. That's twc.health/TPP. The code TPP saves you $30 at checkout, and kits are only available in the United States. All right. So just keep that in mind. Link is in the description. Go check it out one more time, twc.health/TPP, which you're looking at it on your screen right now. That's how you know you're in the right spot. Meanwhile, there's the ad of cigars up in front. Like, get this kit from the Wellness Company for severe acute respiratory syndromes and the avian flu and other things. And oh, by the way, here's a stogie. Gurkha, anyone? Gurkha? Google. Savages. All right. I'll tell you right now, this is what I'm going to do, Laura. Where's my banner? Oh, did I delete it? I think I did. Let me make another one real quick. It's so stupid anyway, but I just wanted it. There we go. You ready, guys? I mean, it's no big deal. This is just... Where'd it go? You got to be joking me. I just want people to know, especially people like recently join. Holy moly. Hey, nice spelling. You ever do a spelling bee, People's Pundit? Jeez. Let me just make sure I'm going to copy it in case that ta-da! And it's not even right. It's not even the right special character, you idiot. Get some sleep. Can't. I just can't. There's no time. All right, there we go. I'm going to read some. I'm going to take a sip of water. And, you don't want your Rubio moment, please. Give me a second. Laura, it would be great if we had a way to because I know you screen them and grab them, but it would be great if I had a way to send back to you which ones we're going to go to and when. And then you could read them and spare my voice because it's awful. Can't be years of smoking. It's got to be the vape. I can't sing anymore. I talk for a 2-hour show. My voice is dead afterwards almost. It's got to be the vape, guys. Got to watch the vape. Better get back on the pouch or lozenges or something. I had a company actually contact us with gum, lozenges, pouches. I need to check them out. All right. Ooh, that's a good poll. I mean, that's a good question. And let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I'd have to go back into my polling email. This could be our poll, but let's see. That's a good question by Nico. For Freedom's poll, booyah. Well, let's take a look at it, shall we, Nico? Nico's question is, and I just went off it like an idiot. Let's get the banner off. Nico's question is, because I'm going to put something else up in a second. In the food freedom poll, which we're calling, by the way, we've decided the four freedoms poll. How cool is that? Because it's this concept that if you can secure freedoms within these four pillars, then you will never be a servant. You will never be subjugated. You will never be anything but a citizen as created and defined by the American identity. I hate that other countries say citizens of the United Kingdom, citizens of Russia, citizens of France, citizen, whatever. You're not a citizen. The concept of citizenship is unique. It was created by the American identity and the American social contract. You are a subject. Call yourself what you are, which is what is subject. Now, until last week, citizenship used to be, well, that's not even true. The minute they gave up on having a border in this country, they devalued citizenship, the concept of it, which goes far beyond the legal understanding of personhood. It's a whole new, beautiful thing. Anyway, if you can secure these four freedoms, which of course, food, health, political, like free speech, right? And so they can't take it away from you. All right. All right. So let's put it up. And Nico says, in the food freedom poll with Barnes, were there any regions in the country that the issues in the poll polled stronger? Food freedom, medical freedom. Did I not put region here? Yeah, there it is. Now, let's go down to the agree, disagree part of this. Really pissing me off. I can't find my other one, and this isn't connecting. Okay. This would be more likely, less likely. I'm really looking for the agree, disagree part, but we can come back and do that. So, support for the farmers, right, to be able to buy food from. If a candidate supports a proposal that allows you to buy food, to purchase food directly from farmers without government permission, does it make you more likely or less likely? In the South, there was, and you said specifically to food, but in the South, it was a little bit, and statistically so, more than other regions, the Midwest being number 2. The West was actually the last, which is a little bit surprising to me, considering there are all of these foodie liberals out there, but it is what it is. And then if you go to the other question, remember, South, Midwest, Northeast, West. Now, if you go to the other question, agree, disagree. Here we go. Now, do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Americans should be allowed to buy food directly from farmers without getting government permission. The South, 54% strongly agree. Another 27% somewhat agree. So huge numbers here, obviously, right? We're in the 80s here. We're at 81%. Everyone else around the 80s. But the intensity of it, again, strongest second in the Midwest, strongest third in the Northeast, strongest fourth in the West. So it goes to show you that there are, with the correct messaging anyway, Robert is right, Maine. Because I guarantee you, when people from Maine look at this, they have their own industries that are things like this, whether it's fishing, right? So they're thinking of it in that way as well. Have you ever been to Maine, folks? I mean, I remember I used to take trips to Maine from New York and Jersey just to go and buy directly from the lobster fishermen. Remember that, Laura? And I would come back with chests of ice, styrofoam chests filled with ice and lobsters, and for almost nothing. And do you remember, by the way, they used to also get those not snow crabs, which are sweeter, the king crab, giant king crab legs. Holy moly. I forgot what I would pay, like $100, and I would get like a whole styrofoam cooler filled with crab legs. It was amazing. So I'm telling you that story to give you an example about why there are some areas where you would very clearly benefit from this message. In Vermont and other places, maple syrup. What if the government came after them? Bottling up maple syrup and selling it at a roadside stand, a flea market, right? Or maybe you just like we have a place here. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to put it in. Well, is there anything wrong with me saying? No. Okay. There's a farm around here. Everyone loves to go there. We buy different kinds of butter, like apple butter, right? Pies, all sorts of breads, regular bread, and things like pumpkin bread and banana bread. And they you don't obtain government food. They're just selling it. They're allowed to support North Carolina farmers, baby. So in the South, there's a lot of farming going on, obviously. I'm a little bit surprised with the West. I am a little bit surprised. But the industry is different. I was just thinking you have those like Whole Foods crowd people out West. I mean, there's tons of them. But, that's what happens when you make assumptions about a poll and the results you'll get from that poll. Locals from Ryan. Do you see any movement in the House and the Senate after this trial farce? Should Trump start telling the world he needs all branches? I absolutely believe that. I know that's why, Ryan, you're seeing some of these very, very crappy endorsements, which are bothering me because, for instance, I'm going to read you something that I got privately. John Duarte hasn't said a word about these political persecutions. Anyway, somebody sent this to somebody who then sent it over. And you may even recognize it if you watch the show, which I may. I spoke to someone at his booth during the apricot fiesta over the weekend about the fact that he was silent. He said that Duarte thinks it was a sham trial just like everybody else. But, quote, because of the vulnerability of the district, unquote. He won't put out an official statement, which is yet another reason that I am leaving Representative blank on my ballot. I'm not sure how hard it is for establishment Republicans to realize that being tough and speaking the truth wins more voters than costs more voters. Bob Good. I mean, this is something Bob Good he's a rare gem over this when it comes to things like this. Bob understands if you win with 52% of the vote, your job is to represent that 52%. Why are you worried about the other 48, 49? Maybe if you do what you say you're going to do and you show yourself to be a man of principle and someone who keeps their promises, maybe then the other 58 to 59% will give you a different look next election, which, by the way, they did in his case, and he won in a landslide. But if you bail on who you say you are, you destroy your credibility with the electorate, including your own base. All right. So I do think that he's doing this, Ryan, because he's trying to play nicey-nicey. I just think that's a mistake. I would have told Trump to field a slate of America First candidates in the primaries. These not, I'm going to go to True Social and post it because Brian Jack or somebody else spoke with one of the candidates or one of the candidates' team members and told them, we really need Trump's endorsement. Oh, we love him. Oh, yeah, he loves him. She loves him. And it's bullshit. Total bull. I'm talking about vetting, putting together a ticket during the primary season. If, because not all of them did, if their day ended up on the presidential primary, they would have worked together to do that. Then, when you know you have secured more loyal people, you put the work in to do it, then you tell the country, hey, this is like the contract for America. I need the other branches to push it. And when the contract was out, obviously Bill Clinton was president. There was no choice to get three branches to go along with it. If you would have done this and ran your own slate of America Firsters and then said, listen, you're voting for me, and I understand you don't trust the Republican Party, because this is how we would have to say it, Ryan. This is another thing. Like, he would have to convince certain people who hate them so much, but they're voting for him. He would have to come out and say, I know you're on the fence with Republicans. I know you never really vote for them down ballot. I know they are worthless, because that's what we hear from people all the time. They're just worthless. I know it, but I need them. And let me deal with them when I get in. Let me see about how I can handle them when I get in. It's a good question. Really good question. You see the drop in the Atlanta Fed Q2 forecast? Let's go check it out. Fedcast. Boop, boop. Let's go check it out, man. Home. Where's GDP now? That's what, for people who don't know what, and I should have cited the name. This is Seth. It's Seth Levy. You know him, you love him on Twitter. He's also on Locals with us. Seth always making astute observations. I don't know why the Atlanta Fed isn't loading up. Maybe we broke it. Come on. There we go. Oh, God, Seth. Oh, God. Holy moly. You see this, Laura? Holy moly. Well, that ain't good. The GOP, and by the way, they've been rather bullish and too bullish in some of these forecasts. I don't know if people have been like kind of following them and comparing them, which is funny because they were always bearish on Trump. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how it works? I mean, sometimes they were, it wasn't always, but I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but we certainly saw the perversion of economic reporting during the era of Trump. Latest estimate, 1.8%, June 3rd, 2024. The GDP Now model estimate for real GDP growth, seasonally adjusted annual rate, in the second quarter of 24 is 1.8%. Down from 2.7 on May 31st. I'll tell you what, guys. I don't know how the regime could argue that the election is legitimate if this man wins in this economic situation. If this holds, we know the labor market sucks. We know inflation sucks. We know housing sucks. This, he can't afford. He needed like a 3% year or close. I mean, for crying out loud, arguing 2.7 is easy peasy for me. It could change, but let's keep our eye on it. That's bad. After the recent releases from the U.S. Census Bureau and the Institute for Supply Management, the nowcast for annualized second quarter real personal consumption expenditures growth and real private fixed investment growth declined from 2.6% and 3.1% respectively to 1.8 and 1.5. Seth, those projections, that latter projection slashed in half. Dude, come on. Come on. Are they really going to try this? Not are they really? I mean, they are trying it. Have the worst economy for an incumbent president since Herbert Walker Bush. I'm going to put my political opponent in jail and try to steal the election. Sure, that's a great idea. Even Sean Trendy is getting nervous. About what, Rich? About the C word. The CW two-word term. I would love to pull that again. We haven't asked that in a long time. How likely is it that we're headed towards political upheaval, a violent political upheaval? Ooh. Here's just one yelling at me from Laura. Do your read, sir. Love it when you yell at me. Rumble. Ord Av. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry, but Ord Av Avj. So if there's any more than 75,000 illegals per month, then he will suspend amnesty. You know what? I was poring over this yesterday. This is an awful bill. I'm not sure if there's a loophole for that or not. Folks, he is, the worst part about it is he's making this situation permanent, or, it's the permanent status quo under the Biden administration. That's what he's doing. And by the way, or the fact he even took this action goes to show you what a lying piece of crap that old fart is. I can't do anything. He's been saying since he was inaugurated, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't take out. I need Congress. And now all of a sudden, because Republicans supposedly blocked him, he can just take action. Do you see, by the way, anyone running to the Supreme, not even the Supreme Court, do you see anyone running to a right-wing jurisdiction to get a nationwide injunction on this executive action? Because they did it within hours of Donald Trump implementing his executive actions. They did it within hours on immigration and got their judge shopping was successful. They got their national injunction. It was only when Neil Gorsuch finally wrote an opinion and said, all of this is squarely within what Trump did anyway, squarely within presidential authority. And if you keep sending these damn challenges up to me, I'm going to get real pissed. And that's when it finally stopped. I want to bring up Spinnaker's comment, even though I talked about it, because this is why I do the show. Spinnaker, you 100% got it. This comment was out before we even went over it, guys. So we did go over the proposed move, which is going to happen. I'm telling you. The establishment of the stock exchange in Texas instead of New York, or registering with the exchange. Spinnaker had said even before that, you ready? What does Rich think of the stock exchange opening in Texas as a challenge to New York City? Makes me think of Nebraska, Omaha, and North Carolina. Bravo. Bravo. You got it. Now, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. You know how I think about it. You know what I think about it. Economics is politics. On Getter, Joseph, what is Richard's opinion on inflation over the next few years? I own a single family rental in South Florida. Unfortunately, I think that people like you are going to further be burdened. Eventually, the home prices are going to have to come down to planet Earth. But because obviously, you're renting that, obviously, I would say. I'm just assuming, Joseph, that you're renting that property out. You're still paying a mortgage on it, though, right? You'll have no reason or no way, really, to refi that. Even if rates were to somehow come down, I don't see it. I don't see any short to midterm relief in the housing market. I just don't. I could be wrong, but I don't. If you look at the CPI, there's a reason why rent and specifically within the shelter index, the sub-index shelter, there's a reason why rent is so, much of that. And it's doing so poorly. Unfortunately, I just don't see that improvement. Which is a shame, because Laura and I did have plans, so I understand people's problems. And now that we're up on that period where you don't get, totally creamed, if I wanted to do something else, move, maybe sell the house, get a good profit, it would be too late. There would be no point. Why would I give up the rate on the mortgage to sell the house, get a chunk, to build or move to another place with a 10% mortgage rate. No, thank you. What's it up to now? 7.8, something like that. Screw that. But eventually, I will say, Joseph, I think eventually people are going to. I mean, we're seeing it with the mortgage application index. It's volatile, that index. So let's see what the trend is like. And the National Association of Realtors, though, however, that one should be a little bit more concerning to everybody. Eventually, activity will fizzle, and then they'll have to do something to make it more attractive. Jay, on YouTube today, huh, Jay? I don't know if Rich ever answered this, but does he notice any differences between Rona, the RNC, and the Trump RNC? Where is it? You reminded me that I forgot to show you an article. Oh, man. Okay, so if you go to Real Clear Politics right now, look up in the top right, you will see an article featuring my buddy, my homie, Sean Parnell. And apparently on the DL, he has been heading up Dave McCormick's Super PAC, and they're raising money and pitching like crazy and have test run some stuff about early voting participation. All right. And actually, we just talked about something. You're going to hear about this real soon. Locals, know a lot of you are in Michigan, and I know a lot of you saw the beginning of that project. The tool is done. I will post it. I forgot to post it, and I will post it with detailed instructions. All right. Very, very cool. In any event, it's very important that, where's the headline? Man, I want to show you this for the answering that. So the Trump RNC will embrace early voting and will embrace, they're going to change the bank the vote program. Like Trump how could I put it? Trump has, advocated or taken over the bank your vote program, which is cool, but it's very, let me play this first and then explain what I think, what so far the major difference is, because keep this in mind, Jay. Leadership strategy, political leaders and party leaders, their strategies greatly influence voting behavior among their partisans when it comes to a lot of things, but vote method is a big deal. So if the party is sending the message, don't vote by mail, don't do early voting, then, the party's going to hate early voting. I guarantee you now that the party will warm up to early voting because we are seeing new things like this.
The RNC is leading the fight to help secure your vote in 2024 as well. They're fighting bad Democrat laws, putting folks on the ground to serve as poll workers and poll watchers, and engaging attorneys to monitor every step of the voting process. Go to bankyourvote.com to sign up and commit to voting early. Bankyourvote.com. We must defeat the far left at their own game, or our country will never recover from this disastrous, crooked Biden administration. Sign up at bankyourvote.com now and join the Republican effort to win big in 2024. We're going to win, and we're going to make America great again. The RNC is leading the fight.
Oh, no, I was right. Okay, so there it is. There also is one more real quick that I want to show you, which is a reaction to this. I cannot stress how critical it is for Trump to do what he just did. I'm sorry, my microphone's far. I cannot stress how important it is for voters to hear, not just Republican voters, but would-be Republican low prop and no prop voters, because when efforts that locals, you already kind of know some about that effort. You're going to learn a lot more today when I put that link up. For instance, the effort in Michigan that we're talking about, and I'll just tell you what it's called right now, 10x your vote. Now, they are seeking to do something to fill a void that Republicans have been missing for a very long time, which is the personal side of this. And everyone thinks they have this figured out. They don't. So when people like this come up with actual good ideas, it will hurt them if Trump is doing what Trump normally does. All right. So they're kind of mocking Laura here. This is why it was a good move to put Laura in the RNC as well. Michael Whatley as the RNC chair. He was a former head of the North Carolina Republican Party. If you haven't paid attention to the work that he did to get Republicans to vote early, he did an amazing job. And when I tell you that Republicans were not only on parity, but even out voting in some areas early, it's huge. Because in many states, you're going to have, like we do here, and in Florida, we have them in both states, in person and absentee ballot voting. Republicans are easier to nudge to go do early in person, but those low prop, no props have to go on the absentee ballot, the permanent absentee ballot list. You have to make it as easy as possible to get them to vote. Now, that's all I'm saying, because I'm not going to tell people how to make it easier. They would have to. If they want to know, they can call me. But that is what has to be done. And it is only going to be possible if Trump gets behind it. Why? Because out of every unlikely, non-registered, and low prop would-be Republican voter, 9 out of 10, when we ask, who would you vote for if you were dying to vote? Trump. End of story. Even though these are the same people who just told us they don't vote because the system's rigged. With Trump doing this, he could convince them to do what efforts are asking them to do. Here, download this app. Scan your license. 16 seconds to get registered for the absentee ballot list. Do it. Take 16 seconds of your life with this tech. You've got to do that. All right. Yeah, I got Laura in a real bad way here. Let's fix this. Okay. Here's Laura Trump on Hannity. Oh, no. Let me remove that in case there's anything personal there. Here is Laura Trump on Hannity. Oh, come on. I lost it. You kidding me? That was huge. Well, there was a point I needed to make with Laura. Hold on. Okay, I could do this one. It's not Hannity. That was a longer clip, but that's fine because this is a short clip and we got to move on. So here's Laura Trump at the Turning Point thing, the CPAC thing, and here's what she said.
If we want to compete with the Democrats, we cannot wait until Election Day. If we want to compete and win, we must embrace early voting. The days of waiting until Election Day to vote are over. We have to encourage everyone who can legally vote to go do so as soon as they legally can.
Now, good. Now, there is another component to this, which is that you have got to bring out these new voters. Why? Because Democrats cheat. Democrats 10x their vote illegally. Republicans have got to learn how to 10x their vote legally. And they have to embrace the personal element to this. Listen, we have done these profiles, personality, character. Democrats and Republicans are like totally different people. For a Democrat, there's a hole in their heart where a Republican puts God. When someone knocks on their door and says, help us, join the movement, be a part of something bigger, all you got to do is sign up for the list. They do it. They're searching for meaning. Republicans feel like they have meaning, and they already have something filling that void. What they have is skepticism, distrust, reluctancy. So when someone knocks on their door, even if it's someone that claims to agree with them, they are much more reserved. They have to be spoken to with a specific language, and it has to be done by people who know them or a more personal connection. No more than a certain degree of separation, which I'm not going to get into. Again, that is not like information I'm giving out to the public. And it's huge. So the answer to that question is it's huge. Oh, yeah. Laura, can I ask a guitar-related question? It goes along with Joseph Murphy's question. How does Rich feel about Sam Ash closing? Awful. End of an era. Awful. Not quite as bad as when I thought Gibson was packing it up. and wouldn't make guitars like my Gold Top over there anymore. Thank you, Donald Trump. Can I get a hear here? Lee Slash had the you know what. Thank you, Donald Trump. Some of the best guitarists in the world were about to lose their favorite guitar. I don't care what the hell you think of Donald Trump. You like Les Pauls? You a guitar player? Thank you, Donald Trump. Say it. Kill yourself to say it. I don't give a damn. But the next time you pick up your Les Paul, or the next time you pick up your SG, or the next time you pick up your BB Special, or your Flying V, or your Explorer, the next time you pop in a Burstbucker, thank you, Donald Trump. Employees were walking around with Make Gibson Great Again hats. It was a beautiful thing. If we would have lost that manufacturing, goodbye custom shop. Or if the custom shop was still around, how much would a recreation of a 57 Gold Top cost me then? They're already expensive. Thank you, Donald Trump. All right. Sam Ash, end of an era. Awful, awful news. Awful news. Depression, almost like awful. Terrible. Seymour, don't scare me, Seymour. Not you too, bro. You got to hang around. What do you think of the Texas Republican Party idea to have a statewide office be done by an electoral college system instead of a popular vote? I'm not a lawyer. I'm a little concerned that that's not constitutional. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll have to see. She knows, right? She knows. I saw that thing pop up. She knows what I'm talking about. Thank you, Donald Trump. I'd have been devastated. Devastated. Oh my God. We could have lost the Les Paul Custom. We could have lost the sound of Aerosmith. You understand what I'm saying to you? He plays a Les Paul, an ebony fretboard Les Paul Custom. You think you're getting ebony in China? Brazilian rosewood? Ha! You're going to get the fake version of leather seats. That's what you're going to get. Screw that. I'm not, Dan, I like the concept, like, you know, knee jerk. I really don't know if that's constitutional. And there are always these are like proposals always have nuances to them that are potentially there's downsides, you know, but then again, Democrats are absolutely, you know, moving forward their popular vote initiative. And you saw Maine just went ahead and did it. And that's just Texas's way of saying, I don't give a damn what you do. Even if you were to somehow ratify this thing, Texas will not participate. Sandy Paws, is it more effective to offer someone advancement in exchange for something or to give them advancement than threaten to take it away unless they behave? Love it. That's a good question. Maybe the latter, and it depends on the person. Maybe they know, you know, I mean, especially if it's somebody who's never had anything like that before, then you give them that position, that advancement, and then you threaten to take it away. And because they know what it's like to go back, they're willing to do anything to stay there. Right? It's good. I love that question. I'm going to go with the latter. I am. As someone who's lived on both sides of the railroad tracks, I'm going to go with the latter. Ask Laura. I literally have a phobia. I kid you not. It's borderline a phobia anyway. I work myself to death because I worked hard for the things that I have. And I don't, not only me personally, I don't want my kids to go without the way I once did. Now, don't get me wrong. My dad busted his chops and he worked hard and gave us everything we needed. But the idea is to advance further and then have your kids advance even further. That's the idea. And I do not want to go backwards. So I'm just thinking about it for myself. I'm trying to put myself in someone's shoes, which is why, by the way, I got to do my own thing. I got to have my own business. I got to work for myself. And I can't do it any other way. Will there be what are the odds that looks at down ballot races? There will be, and we will you will start to see more what are the odds as the election draws near. That's how what are the odds works. Here's a counterpoint though: is it a distributed financial center is better than a concentrated center in New York? That's a good question. Let me ask you: would it be good to put the FBI in Florida? Would you, kind of like un-F the FBI, or would the FBI F Florida? I think it's the latter. I do. I think you have your centralized financial centers and you keep them in one area the way they kind of were. And the way in our early republic, we had these financial centers. And of course, you have Chicago as one as well. By the way, look what happened to Chicago. But there's other types of institutional power, and they should not have an incestuous relationship and share a geographic location the way that it is now. So, for instance, before the 17th Amendment, there were a lot of these guilds who had tremendous wealth, and wealth was more spread across the nation, kind of like sprinkled across the nation, concentrated more in the Midwest than in the government power centers. And so I think it's important, which is why I don't like the big growth of government, putting things in Kennedy Space Station, putting things in Johnson Space Station, putting things all around. You're just kind of spreading around that culture. That culture will not absorb the local flavor. And that's what we've seen time and time again. Let's see. Wanted to see if Rich had an explanation as why Kari Lake is not doing well in the polls. I don't think she's hitting the right message. I think it's more of a generic race right now. And I think she had a ton of money thrown at her that hurt her. I think potentially Blake Masters, his concerns may have been, I don't know yet because I haven't polled. So I'm just throwing out potentials for you. For instance, Blake Masters did want to run for Senate, recognized he couldn't beat Kari Lake in a primary, but did want to run for Senate because he felt that Kari Lake had taken the wrong route with the election integrity stuff, maybe a little bit too much, and that could hurt you like it hurt Al Gore. We'll just have to see. I also think that Gallego is being handled with kid gloves. Rubin is good at pretending he's a decent person, good at pretending he's a moderate. The Arizona Republic, all of those local papers are totally corrupt. I also think she's not as far down in the polls as she's not as far behind as the polls are suggesting. I don't. There is no way there will be a 13-point gap between Donald Trump and Kari Lake in Arizona. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And there are some Republicans who feel slighted by Kari Lake. The Robinson clan. However, as we get closer, I do think she's going to close that gap. I do. I've seen it before. And that was smart of her to go with, go to Capitol Hill, go get Barrasso's support, go get Mike, all these other senators' support. I think that was smart, and I think that it'll pay dividends later. It's just that Democrats start as a united front. They do. And the PVI, Partisan Voting Index, the strictness of it is not taking over yet in a Senate race, but we will start to see it soon. I just don't see them voting for Donald Trump and the numbers that Donald Trump's about to win Arizona by, and Kari Lake somehow lose it. Now, if Trump was to win Arizona by like 2 points, then Kari Lake is probably going to lose. All right. If he wins by 3 or more, she's probably going to win. And again, she needs to do the same thing. She spent so much time railing against early voting. She has got to do the same thing. And I know that she has engaged with a certain group to try to do that. I just don't think that's going to be enough. And I'm sorry. Listen, even when I'm friendly with people, I'm still going to tell you what I believe. That operation is not enough. And it's not reinventing. It's not filling the gaps of what Republicans need as far as what I mentioned to you before. It's just reinventing the wheel and modernizing what Republicans already do, and then trying to play with Democrats on that level. And that's not a level that's good enough. You won't beat Democrats like that. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Oh my God. Wrong bite. Excuse me. I don't know that much about what you're talking about with Voorhees. I'm sorry. I'll have to come back to that. Does Rich have any fears about illegal immigrants voting en masse across the nation and that swaying the outcome? No, I don't. Will there be illegals who vote? There always are. But nobody is seeing them turn up on the voting rolls in the numbers that you will see some people fear-mongering on Twitter. It's not there. Folks, it's not there. We know who these people are who are being newly registered. That's not that. Now, could Democrats pull something late in a late hour? Maybe. We'll see. But you can't just hop across this border and vote. You cannot. I am worried about it in the long term because like everything that they try and experiment with in New York and California end up being part of the National Democratic Party platform. So for them to pretend like they don't want illegals to vote is just totally a lie. It's the most disingenuous thing. They're doing it in parts of California. They're trying to push it, and they will get it. And they have gotten it, I think, in one. And they will do it in New York. And it's like once you see them doing things in their strongholds, that's when you know you're screwed. That's when you know they're lying and they're going to make it part of their thing. How winnable is the New York Senate seat when Menendez running as an independent? Tough haul. We'll see how it goes and shakes out with the candidates there. And that's something we will revisit. But it is a tough go. All right. That's a good question, though. Really, really good question. What's my best guess at the electoral college vote if Trump wins a popular vote by 1%, 2%, 3%? Again, we actually went over this a little bit on Monday. And I said that I did generally agree with the decision desk's assessment. Currently, as it stands right now, if Trump is ahead by about 1, I told you I have no idea what you're talking about on that one, Laura. And don't if you interrupt me in the middle of a question like that, you really mess up my train of thought. I have no idea what I was talking about now. What? Just pop on and say it. I can't hear you from the other room. Oh, okay. So there it is. I guess I got to wrap it up here. But let me just say this, though. Check out on the show on Monday because I think we are in roughly 1-2 point range. The most likely outcome of that is the 290s. However, there's certainly scenarios in which at the 1 to 2 point range, you could see Trump as high as around 312 and sure lower. But though you can see the distribution in those simulations is far less when you're at that range in the popular vote. So 290 something at 1 point, 2 point is easy to see with as high as like 312 if it's closer to 2. All right, with that in mind, jump on over to Human Events with Jack Posobiec, and I will see you guys there soon. Not even going to play the music. I'm just going to cue on out of here. See you Friday. We'll finish up some of those questions. I'm going to copy and paste them. They're awesome. Love you guys. None of